Iranian troops silently land on U.S. territory. August 14, 2025. In the calm waters off the coast of Oregon, a nightmare is brewing in the shadows. In less than an hour, Iran has dispatched 30 specialized amphibious assault ships, carrying 120 main battle tanks, 60 armored personnel carriers, and 500 elite naval infantrymen toward a small, isolated American town. Their mission: seize it, fortify it, and turn it into a forward base for further incursions into U.S. territory. Tehran believes the plan is perfect. Little do they know, they are hurtling toward a trap that will destroy them in minutes. High above, at 65,000 feet, a stealthy American drone tracks every move, updating it every 5 seconds. Onshore, coastal missile batteries are ready to fire. Beneath the waves, an American attack submarine is in position. Above, 80 armed drones circle discreetly, ready to rain down destructive bombs. What is America's plan to lure the enemy? Is Iran falling into a trap? Let me find out the truth. At 2:15 a.m. on August 14, 2025, the cold waters of the North Pacific, 180 nautical miles west of Astoria, Oregon, rippled under the passage of Iran's most audacious military gamble in decades. In total darkness, 30 specialized amphibious assault ships cut silently through the swells, their engines tuned to low signature mode to evade sonar and satellite tracking. Each vessel carried a lethal payload: 4 main battle tanks weighing 55 tons apiece, 2 armored personnel carriers, and a strike team of approximately 17 elite Iranian naval infantry. Collectively, the flotilla brought 120 tanks, 60 APCs, 500 heavily armed Marines, and over 6,000 tons of armored steel to American shores. Their arsenal included more than 250,000 rounds of ammunition, 600 anti-tank missiles, and enough explosives to level a small town in less than 40 minutes. The target was an isolated fishing town with fewer than 3,800 residents, defended by a single outdated coastal radar covering over 300 miles of shoreline, the weakest point in America's coastal defense network. Iran's objective was clear: land, overwhelm the town, and fortify it into a forward base for future operations deep into U.S. territory. To avoid detection, communications ran on 256-bit military encryption. All ships operated under strict emission control, and their formation imitated scattered commercial cargo vessels. On the bridge of the lead ship, Iranian commanders studied landing charts and assault timetables, convinced they had the element of surprise. They believed the United States was blind to their approach, but 65,000 feet above, invisible to radar, an American stealth UAV was already tracking their every move, transmitting a live update every 5 seconds to the U.S. Naval Command. The trap was already closing, and Iran didn't even know it. If you were in command, would you strike the Iranian fleet now, or wait for the perfect kill zone? From the moment the stealth UAV locked onto the Iranian flotilla, U.S. Naval Command at Pearl Harbor began receiving full-spectrum battlefield intelligence every 5 seconds, down to the heat signature of every individual soldier. In under 90 seconds, encrypted alerts were transmitted to the Pacific Fleet headquarters in San Diego, triggering Operation Black Tide, a rapid elimination protocol designed to wipe out any amphibious invasion force in less than 15 minutes. The strategy was precise: do not fire yet. Let Iran advance into the pre-drawn kill box, a lethal corridor 22 nautical miles wide and 35 nautical miles long, where overlapping American firepower could hit every ship simultaneously. 3 strike components were activated: 80 MQ-25 Stingray UAVs, each armed with 2 500-pound precision-guided bombs, totaling 80,000 pounds of high explosives. A Virginia-class attack submarine, USS North Dakota, maneuvered into ambush position at 820 feet depth, running silent at 25 knots, armed with 38 Mach 48 heavyweight torpedoes and 12 Tomahawk Block 5 cruise missiles. 2 coastal missile batteries with 24 RGM-84 Harpoon anti-ship missiles primed to fire, each with a 488-pound warhead capable of ripping a warship in half. Inside the operations center, 14 giant digital screens tracked the Iranian fleet's every move. Commanders noted their speed: 14 knots, and calculated they would be in the kill box in 27 minutes. Iran's captains still believed they were invisible, their radars showing only empty ocean. They had no idea 80 drones were circling 40,000 feet above, and a silent submarine was less than 12 miles off their stern. The noose was tightening. When the first strike came, it would hit with the force of over 100 tons of explosives in the opening minute alone. Before the American trap works, please support us by liking and subscribing to the channel. At 02:42 a.m., the Iranian flotilla crossed the invisible boundary of the American kill box. From that moment, the countdown was no longer measured in minutes, but in seconds. At 02:42:07, a burst of encrypted commands was transmitted from U.S. Naval Command to 80 MQ-25 Stingray UAVs circling silently at 40,000 feet. Each UAV equipped with AN/AAQ-40 electro-optical targeting systems, locked onto a pre-assigned target. These drones were not experimental. They were the backbone of modern American maritime strike capability, capable of releasing their payload from 20 miles away with pinpoint accuracy of within 1.2 meters. At 02:42:15, the first wave of 160 GBU-53B small diameter bomb 2 fell from the sky. Each bomb carried 250 pounds of high explosive BLU-97 submunitions, designed to pierce armor and detonate secondary fuel stores. Traveling at Mach 1.5 in a near vertical drop, the bombs struck 10 lead Iranian ships in the space of 4.8 seconds. The effect was apocalyptic. One vessel erupted in a fireball over 200 feet high, its 4 onboard tanks cooking off in a chain reaction that sent 24 tons of steel fragments raining into the ocean. Another ship's deck split open, hurling its APCs into the water like toys. The shockwaves were so powerful that Iranian troops 200 meters away were thrown overboard. Iranian formation collapsed instantly. Ships swerved to avoid the burning hulks, breaking their defensive spacing. That's when the second wave of drones struck. Another 160 bombs slammed into the center and rear of the column, shredding radar systems, detonating ammunition stores, and igniting onboard fuel. By 02:43:02, less than 50 seconds after the first bomb fell, 14 Iranian ships were either sinking or fully engulfed in flames. Casualties mounted rapidly. Over 180 Iranian Marines were confirmed killed in the opening minute, with dozens more wounded and trapped in the lower decks. Meanwhile, USS North Dakota, lying 11.8 nautical miles astern of the fleet, launched 4 Mach 48 Mod 7 heavyweight torpedoes at the vessels attempting to turn and flee. Each torpedo traveled at 55 knots, guided by advanced sonar homing to strike below the keel, the breaking point of a ship's structure. The detonations produced underwater shockwaves exceeding 500 psi, snapping hulls in half and sending them to the ocean floor in under 90 seconds. Iranian communications were now in chaos. The encrypted channels designed for coordinated amphibious landings became saturated with overlapping distress calls. Some captains tried to beach their ships on nearby sandbars, only to be obliterated by follow-up drone strikes. Above, the UAVs continued their deadly ballet, their AI-assisted targeting systems automatically reassigning bombs to ships that survived the initial waves. By 02:44:30, the once proud Iranian formation was reduced to a scatter of burning wrecks, drifting aimlessly in a sea slick with oil and debris. And yet, the battle was far from over. The coastal missile batteries had not yet fired a single shot. "Are you there?" followed by the final blow of the trap. At 02:45 a.m., the surviving Iranian ships, barely a third of the original force, were in full retreat, engines pushed to maximum, wakes foaming under the desperate thrust of turbines. But there was no escape. They were already inside range of 2 U.S. coastal missile batteries hidden along the Oregon coastline, each positioned to cover overlapping kill zones. The order came in: fire all tubes. Within 6 seconds, 24 RGM-84 Harpoon Block 2 plus anti-ship missiles roared from their launch canisters. Each missile, 15 feet long and weighing 1,523 pounds, carried a 488-pound high-explosive warhead and flew at Mach 0.85, just 15 feet above the sea surface, skimming under radar coverage until the final terminal climb. Guided by GPS and active radar homing, the harpoons struck like sledgehammers. The first salvo hit 3 retreating Iranian vessels almost simultaneously. One ship's forward section detonated when its ammunition hold, containing over 20,000 rounds, went up in a blinding flash. Another harpoon pierced the engine room of a tank carrier, igniting 10,000 gallons of diesel fuel into a rolling inferno visible for 14 miles. USS North Dakota added to the slaughter. The submarine's fire control system, linked directly to the UAV network, fired 2 Tomahawk Block 5 cruise missiles at ships attempting to hide in the smoke. Flying at 550 mph, barely 100 feet above the water, the Tomahawks carried 1,000-pound penetrating warheads designed to punch through reinforced decks before exploding. Both targets were annihilated, one breaking in 2, the other capsizing within minutes. Above, the remaining 20 UAVs from the first assault phase hunted stragglers. Switching from bombs to AGM-114R Hellfire missiles, each weighing 100 pounds with a shaped-charged warhead, the drones struck lifeboats and smaller assault craft attempting to ferry troops ashore. By 02:48 a.m., the last organized Iranian vessel was gone, either burning, sinking, or drifting powerless in a slick of oil and debris. In total, 26 Iranian ships were destroyed at sea, 4 more crippled, and later sunk. Over 300 Iranian Marines were confirmed killed, with 200 survivors pulled from the water and taken prisoner. All 120 tanks and 60 APCs were lost to the depths, along with hundreds of tons of munitions. The operation had lasted under 6 minutes from the first UAV strike to the last missile impact. The kill ratio was absolute. 100% of the Iranian amphibious force eliminated without a single American casualty. The ocean fell silent again, but now it was a silence broken only by the crackle of fires, the hiss of sinking metal, and the distant hum of American engines heading home. By 03:10 a.m., the battle was over. The North Pacific was littered with twisted metal, burning fuel, and drifting wreckage. The smell of diesel and cordite hung over the water for miles. U.S. Navy recovery teams, supported by MH-60R Seahawk helicopters, began pulling survivors from the frigid 52 GF waters. Of the 500 Iranian Marines who had set sail hours earlier, 200 were taken prisoner, many suffering from hypothermia, burns, and shrapnel wounds. The loss of equipment was staggering. 30 specialized amphibious assault ships destroyed or sunk, 120 main battle tanks, and 60 APCs, now lying 180 nautical miles offshore, scattered across the seabed. Over 6,000 tons of armored steel and hundreds of tons of munitions lost permanently. Iran's total casualties reached 300 dead, making it the single most devastating defeat for its naval infantry in modern history. By contrast, U.S. forces reported 0 fatalities and only 2 minor injuries, both caused by equipment handling during recovery operations. Intelligence teams immediately began interrogating the prisoners. Among them were 3 high-ranking Iranian naval officers carrying encrypted tablets containing invasion maps, logistical timetables, and contingency plans. Forensic cyber units cracked the encryption within 36 hours, revealing plans for 2 additional landing operations in other coastal regions, now neutralized before they could begin. Satellite imagery of the battle zone, released by the Pentagon 18 hours later, showed the scope of the destruction. Dozens of oil slicks, some stretching over 5 nautical miles, and debris fields covering more than 40 square miles painted a picture of total annihilation. The political fallout was immediate. International news networks ran continuous coverage of the failed invasion, with military analysts calling it the most decisive naval interception since the Falklands War. In Tehran, the government scrambled to explain how an entire amphibious task force had been wiped out in under 6 minutes. For the United States, the message was clear and deliberate. Any hostile force attempting to breach its shores would be met with overwhelming, coordinated firepower. Within 72 hours, U.S. Navy recruitment inquiries spiked by 47%, and defense analysts worldwide began re-evaluating the balance of power in the Pacific. Operation Black Tide was over, but its strategic shockwaves had only just begun. The wreckage off the Oregon coast would take weeks to clear, but the strategic message was already carved into history. The United States had not merely defended its shores, It had demonstrated a doctrine of instant, layered, and absolute response. In less than 6 minutes, an entire invasion force, complete with 30 warships, 120 tanks, 60 armored carriers, and 500 elite troops, had been erased from the battlefield. For Iran, the cost was not only measured in lives and equipment, but in credibility. Military planners in Tehran now faced the undeniable reality. American surveillance reach and precision strike capability extended far beyond what they had anticipated. The loss of 3 senior officers, along with the capture of operational data, stripped away any hope of concealing the full scope of the failure. International observers called it a turning point in modern amphibious warfare. Nations with similar ambitions began quietly rethinking coastal assault strategies, knowing that stealth fleets and encrypted communications were no guarantee of survival. The kill box concept, once a closely guarded American tactic, had now been demonstrated on the world stage with devastating effect. But behind the headlines and satellite images lay the human truth. The sailors and aviators who executed the mission without a single loss. The operators who tracked every movement for hours. And the planners who made the hard choice to wait until the enemy was exactly where they needed to be. In the end, the sea returned to silence, but that silence was not peace. It was deterrence, forged in precision, discipline, and overwhelming firepower. If you believe stories like this need to be told, shared, and remembered, then support the channel by subscribing, liking this video, and leaving your thoughts in the comments below. Because history's warnings are only valuable if we choose to listen.